I got a number of messages yesterday from people who saw the Dillian Whyte interview on Sky and the subsequent news article that was associated on the Sky Sports website. So Dillian Whyte went into the Sky studios, and I'll see if I can pull it up as I'm talking. He mentioned a number of different things. Firstly, in terms of an update actually on Dillian Whyte himself. He's saying that he's intending to return to the ring early as May, June. You know, he says that he's looking to get back in training after the shoulder injury, and he's looking to get back into the action and have a few fights. And I think what he said is he wants to get back into the swing of things, knock out one or two opponents. I think that's the right idea for Dillian. You know, there's often a temptation when you have a big fight. Suddenly more offers become available to you. Look at Bryant Jennings, for example. He had the big fight against Klitschko, and then because new offers came available, he jumped straight into a fight with Luis Ortiz. I think if you're a fighter suffering your first loss, your best bet is to get some momentum back, drop down a level, rebuild confidence, work out on where things went wrong, and go again. David Price didn't do that, and he got exposed twice in a row. Bryant Jennings didn't do that, he lost twice in a row. I think Dillian Whyte, he's a young guy, he's got a lot ahead of him, he's got a big profile and a big future, but there's a lot to work on. There's a lot to work on with Dillian Whyte. And I think dropping down, testing out 2 or 3 different opponents, and maybe fighting one of the more established contenders, you know, Tony Thompson, Malik Scott, I know he's friends with Malik Scott, but, one of those sort of names, beatable guys, but ranked guys, those key learning fights. I think that's what Dillian's missed out on at this stage of his career. So I'd like to see him go down those routes. Now, he called out Dereck Chisora in no uncertain terms, but said that Chisora didn't want to fight. Chisora swiftly took to Twitter and said that he would fight Dillian Whyte. Let me say, if I was Dereck Chisora, I would want nothing to do with that fight. The only caveat is that I have heard that Dereck Chisora supposedly knocked Dillian Whyte out in sparring, but that could be nothing more than just rumour online. But if that was the case, then maybe Chisora's got... I know they did used to spar together and train together, so perhaps Chisora's got some inside track, and perhaps Chisora knows that it's a fight maybe he would do well in. So if that's the case, maybe. But if I was Chisora, I'd be inclined to stay well away from that. And I'll tell you why. Because Chisora's actually in a decent position at present. He's going to fight for the European title against Hellenius. That's a big fight. If he were to win the European title, he'd be really highly ranked, and he wouldn't actually be in a crazy position to push for another world title. Especially now there's going to be so many champions in the heavyweight division. We're used to just the Klitschko brothers, but now you've got Tyson Fury, Wilder, the Glazkov Martin winner, the Chagayev Brown winner. Throw Luis Ortiz into the mix as well. There's all these different title fight avenues that Dereck Chisora could get into. So I'm not sure it's the most sensible fight for Dereck Chisora. If he's prepared just to become an opponent, rather become an opponent against Anthony Joshua than Dillian Whyte. The simple thing, Joshua Chisora will be on pay-per-view. Chisora will probably get paid £500,000 for it. That's why, from a business perspective, the Whyte fight doesn't make much sense to me. But Chisora took to Twitter. He said that he wanted the fight. He's very, very much game for it. So, let's see if that fight happens. A lot of people in boxing, and I myself included, really like that fight because of the styles. A lot of people say Whyte could be a rich man's Chisora. And that's the case. And that could be the case. But it would be an interesting clash of styles. 2 guys who come straight forward, throw a lot of punches. It could be a bit of a war, which would be very, very interesting. They've both got a lot of punch resistance. Now, Dillian Whyte was also very critical of Anthony Joshua. He said that Anthony Joshua, well, this is the Sky headline I'm reading, Anthony Joshua is slow and his power is overrated. I remember in the article it also said that Dillian Whyte said he was very easy to hit, and he was surprised how easy Joshua was to hit. Now, all of these things may be the case, and I really like Dillian Whyte. I met Dillian Whyte, as I said in a previous video. I supported him in the build-up to the fight. I do like Dillian Whyte. But I've got to call it straight down the line. Now, Manny Pacquiao made a complete fool of himself after the Floyd Mayweather fight by suggesting he had an injury that no one had heard of before. And I gave him stick for it. Now, I don't think Dillian Whyte is quite as bad as Manny Pacquiao for 2 reasons. One, we know that Dillian Whyte was carrying an injury from the previous Minto fight. And 2, there is more of a suggestion that that injury impeded his performance, whereas I myself didn't see any evidence of a Pacquiao injury during the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight. So I don't think Dillian Whyte is doing a Manny Pacquiao. I'm not going to put him in the same category. Having said that, what I would say is I'm not really in general a supporter of fighters coming out after the fight and blaming their loss on injury. And Whyte was saying that he was, half the fighter in there, and if he was even 80% fit, he would have got rid of AJ. So, I have to call it what it is, and he is essentially blaming his loss on the injury and saying that if that hadn't been a factor, he would have won the fight. And whether that's true or not, it's not really... I don't like it when boxers do it. And the fact that I like Dillian Whyte, the fact that I'm a fan of his, doesn't change that. I still don't like it, even if it's the case, I must admit, that second round, I did think Joshua was there for the taking. And I was really surprised by Dillian Whyte. I was very confident Dillian Whyte would win that fight going into the third round, and I was very surprised that he didn't take it. And if I'm honest, Dillian Whyte's performance did disappoint me. I felt he was slow in there. I thought his jab was a bit flailing, a bit wide, not very technical. And Dillian Whyte on the whole did slightly disappoint me in there, and that would tie in with an injury, because I was expecting more from Dillian Whyte. So I'm not saying I disagree with his injury, and I'm not saying he couldn't have beat Joshua without the injury, but what I am saying is, I shared the link on my Facebook. I said, Dillian Whyte is saying he would have won the fight, and a lot of people just said, doesn't this look ridiculous that he's saying Joshua has no power when Joshua left him spark unconscious on the canvas? And I think he's got to be slightly careful of that, At the end of the day, whatever happened, he lost the fight via devastating knockout. And you don't want to go too much on the train that it was, it was a fight you should have won and Joshua doesn't carry much power. Because if he doesn't carry much power, why were you, on the canvas? So it's a difficult one. I do think the Joshua fight is... there's likely to be a rematch at some point. I just think it's such a good fight. There are some people in boxing, like groups of boxers that are made for each other. Cleverly and Bellew, I know that wasn't a good fight the second time round, but the outside of the ring hatred. George Groves versus James DeGale, and I think this is another one. People will always be interested in this fight. Even if Anthony Joshua goes on to be a dominant heavyweight champion and beats everyone, and Dillian Whyte is more a British level fighter, there'll still be interest in a rematch of this fight. It will still do a load of pay-per-views. It will still do a load of ticket sales. There's such history and animosity and intrigue there that this is always going to be a big fight. Always going to be a big fight. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens again. Obviously, Dillian Whyte supposedly got a £500,000 payday for the first fight. I don't know what Dillian Whyte's biggest payday was before that, but I'd assume it would be 10 grand, 15 grand. So he's obviously wanting more of that money, more of that business, which fair play to him. Why wouldn't you? But yeah, it was interesting. There's so much. Dillian Whyte is a great character out of the ring. Some of the things he says, some of the opinions he comes out with. I must admit, I find this Stormzy and Dillian Whyte, the new hatred between those two. I view that as amazing, huge comedic value. All I keep thinking to myself is, Joshua walked first. Imagine if Dillian Whyte had walked first, right? And Dillian Whyte was in the ring, and then Stormzy was in the ring rapping about AJ and stuff. I just wonder if Dillian Whyte would have walked over to him and sparked him there in the middle of the ring, which I'm not condoning, but certainly would have done well for the viewing figures, let's put it that way. So, yeah, Dillian Whyte's a really interesting character. There's a bright future for him. I do think that Dillian Whyte needs to show vast improvement from the last fight. I was very much disappointed by his performance. I felt he should have won the fight. I felt the fight was there for him to take. And if you watch the fight back, I was surprised how raw and unschooled Dillian Whyte did look in there at times. Maybe that was all because of the injury. Maybe he can sort that out with surgery. I also feel he needs to be slightly better conditioned. I think his fitness was a problem in there. I also think that that maybe affected his foot speed and his movement around the ring, which was very one-paced at times. But Dillian Whyte has got a lot going for him, and he can come back to be a decent fighter. The Chisora fight is a good fight, but I'm not sure it's the best option for Chisora. I think there are more lucrative options for Chisora out there, and I really want to see Dillian Whyte drop down 1 or 2 levels now. I want to see him stay busy, maybe have 4 or 5 fights between June and the end of the year, knock out a few people, try and have 1 or 2 learning fights, against the Kevin Johnsons or the, I know Kevin Johnson's supposedly retired now, but against that type of operator, and go from there. He's got a lot to add in the division, and we shall see how he returns. Let me know your thoughts. If you've enjoyed this video, please do give me the thumbs up. If you're into your heavyweight boxing, please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to cover all the heavyweight action this weekend on the channel. Many thanks for watching.